Yes, time for some Type 40 extra Type 40 video, exclusive Type 40 content here on YouTube and Rumble with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks. Welcome back to the channel. Type 40 Extra is our before show, after show, and in between show to all the podcasts and the live streams and the various other things that we do under the Type 40 banner with the Fandom Podcast Network. Sit tight. We've got a nice discussion to get into about something very much here and now, but still sort of then too. It's very, very strange. We're crossing time streams and time zones again here at Type 40 Extra. So please like the video now, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, check your mouth is working, Hadley, and to hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what we're doing next and when we're doing it, live streams, podcasts, and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's a busy old couple of months. We're guaranteed, aren't we, from the BBC? Doctor Who's 60th anniversary year. Come on, give us the good stuff. We can't keep amusing ourselves indefinitely, can we? It's a good job that the Doctor Who community is full of some of the most creative people you could possibly imagine. I'm going to speak to one of them on this edition of Type 40 Extra, because I've been scrolling the view screen, as always, for the sights and the sounds and the happenings throughout the Whoniverse to bring it to you and to have the kind of chats that I like to have, and I think that you're probably going to enjoy hearing. Okay, so who have I got? It's the question, who's calling? Who's calling? Well, this gentleman, he's very much the man of the moment, the man of the hour in the entire Doctor Who community, and several people have said to me since they found out I was going to be talking to him, you have to ask him this, you have to ask him that. Well, we'll see what we can get around to, because I've got I'm happy to say that my guest this time, it's Jake, aka Jacob Booth, aka the Confession Dial on Twitter and on YouTube. Hiya, Jake.
Hi, how you going, Dan? Nice to be here.
Welcome to Type 40. Yes, so if people may not have heard your name, Jake, they may have seen you across YouTube and Twitter, haven't they, as the Confession Dial?
Yes, I think I've been fairly anonymous for all these years, generally, just not really showing my face. I think I've probably uploaded a couple of photographs of myself, like with at conventions a couple of times in the past, but most people probably haven't seen them. So yeah, this for a lot of people, this is probably the first time you've seen me. So there you go.
You keep under the radar. I suppose you let
Yes,
the work
yes.
speak for itself, the things that you do. Because what do? You're a filmmaker, aren't you, predominantly?
Yeah. Well, I've done sort of short films and filmmaking for years, but then yeah, my focus on this particular channel is Doctor Who video edits. So mainly tributes and I guess you call them just edits or montages, or don't even know what you'd call them really. But yeah, just fun little edits for people to enjoy.
Fun stuff. So you're in Australia, aren't you? Which part of Australia are you from?
I come from Newcastle, which is about 2 hours from Sydney. So most people probably heard of Sydney, so that gives you a bit of an idea where I am. But not sure how many people have heard of it. But it's a great place to live.
There is a massive amount of support for Doctor Who, isn't there? Still in Australia. You guys have grown up with it just the same way that we have, haven't you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was I was 9 years old, 8 or 9 when Doctor Who came back in 2005, and I think
Oh,
it
we've
really took
got
off here
another
as well.
one. Hey, we keep getting these young people in. What's going? Oh, okay. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, but sorry, yeah, well, yeah, 8 or 9, I guess I would have been, and then at the time, yeah, fell in love with the show from there, and it became quite popular here for many years. So it's always been very loved in Australia.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to know that this show brings people together from all over the world, whatever age group they are, all joking apart. And funnily enough, you're just the kind of bloke to ask about this. I wonder if you'd seen this. This has also been in the media the last week or so. This is in Tasmania. It's at Battery Point, Hobart in Tasmania, Australia. And this is the TARDIS gate. Are you aware of this? It's become a bit of an internet phenomenon in the last week, 10 days.
I haven't actually seen this. This is great. I actually went to Hobart fairly recently, so that's cool to see. But yeah, I haven't seen that. But is that like a full prop? Is it, or is it just like a gate? Right.
Well,
Oh,
I've
cool.
looked a little closer, and to the best of my knowledge, I'm pretty sure it's just a gate that's just been painted really, really well.
Well, it still looks very impressive. That looks really cool. I might have to make one for myself at some point.
Get a pilgrimage down there, because if
Yeah.
you look really closely, you can see that the panels on the door, there's actually just 2 rather than 3 underneath the window. So there's little things here and there, but the colour seems bang on, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, like I said, very impressed.
So head over to Battery Point Hobart, Jake, and anybody else in the vicinity. It could be worth a flight. I don't know. Whoever's got this will probably end up regretting it and painting over it pretty quick smart. But this is the thing, isn't it? This is what I mean about the show being so culturally relevant all over the world. And it's the kind of thing where people want to proclaim their allegiance to it in the same way that you might put the national flag in your garden or something like that. You know, the way the Americans do, a lot of them, they have the flag, don't they? The stars and stripes in the garden, which I think is a lovely thing. But it's Doctor Who. I think it's often stuff like this. You put a TARDIS in the window, but that is really going next level. I think I'd have to. I've got a sort of a wrought iron back gate, but I'm thinking about upgrading to a TARDIS now. I'm doing that.
Yeah, I've always wanted to create like because I've got obviously a lot of collection of Doctor Who DVDs and Blu-rays, so I'd love to create like a TARDIS box wardrobe to have to, or what do you call it? Yeah, just like a wardrobe that opens up with the TARDIS doors and shows all the collection of Blu-rays. That's sort of a dream of mine, but I'm not a very good handyman. I'm not very good at carpentry and all that sort of stuff, so it will be a bit beyond me, but it's always something to think about.
Now, I am absolutely shocking at anything like that. I'm like you, I'm a creative person, so I'm artistic. I'm not very practical. So if I've only got to put these units you see behind you here, these from IKEA and things, when I'm doing a flat pack, I have to really think about what I'm doing and be absolutely meticulous and very strict with myself and lay out rulers and pencils and everything in front of me. It takes me longer to prepare than actually make the damn thing. But that's because my mind just isn't practical at all. And so when it comes to the artistic stuff, obviously, this is really the stuff that I gravitate towards, whether it's traditional or digital. I think it's all sort of wrapped up in one another now. I think that technology and software has sort of freed creativity. I mean, for all the people, at the moment, I know there's a lot of discussions, isn't there, about the morality behind something like AI. But I think the purer form of that synergy between us and technology has been producing the kind of results in the last few years that we wouldn't ever have dreamt possible 5, 10, let alone 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's an interesting conversation to have about AI, because I'm definitely not for AI from the perspective of replacing artists, but I think AI
Mhm.
can be a very, very good tool to assist artists with creative work. So, I've definitely tried. Well, I suppose we'll talk about it throughout this film when I get more into the actual making of the video itself. But there's definitely elements of AI related things to help create these sort of things, but I don't think AI works on its own. I think you need a lot of manual intervention as an artist to make something really, really work. But yeah, so I guess that's sort of where I stand on it.
Whenever there are new innovations in anything creative, quite often there's a flurry, isn't there, of people, and a flock of people jump on it and try various things with it, and then eventually it kind of dies down, and maybe some middle ground will be found, whereby, as you say, it can aid us rather than we become a slave to it, where we use it as a really effective tool. That's what I'd like to think. Some people would call that an idealistic way of looking at things, Jake, but you've got to have some faith in humanity, haven't you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, so this last few days, I've been following your Twitter account for quite a while because I've seen something that you worked on before. And that's how I'd seen a trailer for a brand new project that you put out. I think it was Saturday, and you teased it very well. You said, something's coming tomorrow. It's funny how we all do that, don't we? We all sort of buy into that kind of thing. It's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's how I guess it's how the industry sells things, when
Yeah.
you're building up to an announcement or a video, it's sort of how they do it. So you kind of want to turn it into an event. You want to make it seem like an important thing. And I think but it's all just a bit of fun, really, isn't it?
That's, of course it is. Get their attention, get a little bit of speculation going before you drop whatever it is you're going to drop. And so we're going to play it now. We've got the teaser trailer here for what you've achieved. This is the second Doctor regenerates, which is, there's no fat on that. There's no fat on that whatsoever. And so it's very, very arresting. So, of course, I had to click on this.
Exile?
Yes, that was exactly what had caught my attention over the weekend. And I was counting the hours to see exactly what you'd done and how you'd done it, Jake. I couldn't wait to see this. And of course, I think you originally dropped it, it was first thing Sunday morning for us in the UK, which would have been sort of towards the evening for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you mean the actual video? Yeah, so I tend to, I've sort of always done that for my videos. I've always sort of thought, oh, because I know most of my audience is the UK, because it is Doctor Who, I tend to go, I'll release it, in the evening sometime, right when, it's the morning on a weekend for the UK, because I just think that that's sort of a good time to catch people when, they're probably off work and just waking up, checking their Twitter accounts, and it pops up. So it just sort of seemed like a good time to follow on with that idea, I guess.
So the second Doctor regenerates. As I say, there is no fat on it, but I thought, I could have sworn, haven't I seen the second Doctor regenerate at the end of the War Games? There, surely I've seen it, haven't I? But then I thought again. I thought, well, no, actually, I don't suppose I did, and none of us did we? We saw a flurry of faces, and we heard Patrick Troughton say some perfectly second Doctor phrases, did we? Oh, my giddy aunt, and all that kind of thing. But that was largely that, wasn't it? The rest of it kind of sat in our imaginations all these decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not even sure why it happened. I think it's just because John Pertwee hadn't been cast yet that they did it that
That's
way.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's always that part of my fan brain that goes, oh, I really wish I could see that transition. So I suppose that's where it came from.
The connective tissue. Did you
hmm
view it then? You wish you could see. Did you view it as somewhat of an injustice, even if it was born of necessity? That it was kind of unfinished business. Second Doctor's, is he a particular favourite of yours?
Well, I would probably call Patrick Troughton my favorite Doctor, so that definitely is a huge part of it. But um, I think it sort of came from, because originally a few years ago I did a Sixth Doctor regenerates video, and that felt more like, I feel like I need to do Colin justice because he,
Oh, that was you
um,
as well, of course.
of course. So he was, his tenure sort of ended very abruptly, and it sort of felt very unfair to him. So you felt like I wanted to do that. And I always loved the Big Finish audio that did portray that.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, it'd be cool to make that as a visual. So that was where it started, and people really liked that. And then I sort of thought, well, what could I do next? And then and it was literally at that time. This is back in 2020. I was thinking, well, I could try a second Doctor one because I love the Patrick Troughton and yeah, we never saw that transition. So there probably is something fun that you could do with that. So it definitely wasn't I didn't see it as like a necessity, like we had to
Mm.
see this. But it just was, I just thought it would be fun to see. And I thought, what else could I do next? And that was, I guess, top of the list.
So it came from that desire to fill that gap for yourself than anything else, rather than realizing that technology had advanced and you could possibly achieve this. And what can I test it on? What can I flex these muscles on?
Well, I definitely think that is a part of it. I think I'm always, every time I'm making a video, it's very much a case of experimenting and looking at some of the technology that is out there and the software that I can use to try to create something. So that's why I say, when this is 2020 when I first thought, okay, I might start making this, and now it's 2023. So 3 years has passed since I thought of the idea. So while I haven't been working on it nonstop for 3 years, I've sort of been an on and off kind of thing. The project that's actually been released now is, a lot of the stuff in it is stuff that I wouldn't have done 3 years ago because I didn't know it existed yet. So it really has, evolved over time
So
with
from
what is
the
available.
seed
So it
of
is an
your
experimental thing.
idea,
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
seed of your idea, you found ways to make it happen, and eventually unlocked resources that you probably didn't think would line up with it.
Definitely, yeah, and it's really very recently in the past year or so, the stuff that's become available has really helped aid these projects that I'm working on and made me realize there's things I can do that just a couple of years ago I was thinking, oh, I wish I could do this, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't have the means to be able to do it. So that's what's exciting about the world we live in, I guess.
So the final short film that you've made, that runs to just over 3 minutes, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, 3 minutes 20 or something about that.
Was that originally did you have that in mind, or was it it'll last as long as it lasts? Is that
Never have a time frame in mind. It really is just however long it takes. When I first started editing it, or when I was sort of, because at first when an edit starts, I kind of am taking random bits of footage and just putting it together and just sort of testing things and seeing if if it flows or it works. And it is a case of experimentation. The very first version of this back in 2020 when I started, literally was, maybe I could incorporate the whole, I don't want to get too over explaining, but like the season 6B theory, which is the idea that the second Doctor had lots of adventures after the Time Lords actually took him to do all these missions for him
Mhm.
before he actually turned into John Pertwee. So I thought
I've
maybe I could,
always loved that idea as well, Jake.
yeah. And so I literally was going to do a montage which actually had time like freezing as he was, spinning off into the black void at the end of the war games, and then it would have this montage of him going through all these experiences of season 6B. But as I was putting it together, I sort of felt this just feels, as much as I love that as a fan, it's a fun idea.
Yeah.
It's just too much about the lore. It's too much about just like, here's the factual pieces of how this fits together. There's no kind of emotional experience with it. I feel like really with a lot of my videos, I want to try to create a little clip that feels like it's a mini episode that has an emotional hook and themes that you can relate to like you would a regular episode. It's not just here's a special effect shot of a transition between two actors. I want to make an
To fill a gap, to tick some boxes
yeah.
that realistically are going to be subjective. Not everybody is going to want to have these things explained or seen, are
Mhm.
they? It's a personal thing.
Definitely, I even catered for that because I know a lot. I've seen lots of talk on Twitter over the years. Some people who love season 6B and some people who hate season 6B as an idea and just think, oh no, that ruins the ending of the war game. So I very purposefully, when I was trying to figure this out, thought, well, how can I sort of get the best of both worlds there? And so that's why when you watch the actual finished product, he's sitting in the black void at the end of the war games, and then you get these quick flashes of season 6B, and then he wakes up in the TARDIS. So if you love season 6B, then that was when it happened. He was taken out of time and he had all those adventures. If you hate season 6B, maybe that was just his life flashing before his eyes. So it kind of gives
I
you the opportunity to choose what you like best. And I think when I thought of that idea, I thought, okay, I think that's the best way of doing it.
I did notice one you blink and you'll miss it moment there with the scarecrows and
Mm-hmm.
the second Doctor, a slightly grayer second Doctor, if I'm not mistaken. So that lines up with the two Doctors, one would imagine.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So I wanted to. So when you look at that sequence, he sort of gradually ages. At first, he's the very first image is like he's in like a snowy background, which is a reference to Big Finish's recent Second Doctor audios with Michael Troughton, where
Yeah.
they are about season 6B. He gets taken out of time, dropped in a snowy landscape, and then I've included the five doctors, the two doctors, the three doctors, and also I've just thrown in a shot of him with a weeping angel for fun because I thought, oh, there's probably all these adventures we didn't see. Why not? And then here you've got the Nightwalkers for any, I guess, comic fans. I've never even read the comic myself, but I'm obviously aware of that. So
So the Nightwalkers was a comic strip, wasn't it, from around that time, designed to sort of, in the nicest possible way, to tread the water, wasn't it, and to fill the gap in between Patrick Troughton's last TV appearance and John Pertwee's debut, while the strip was running in TV comic, which had been Doctor Who's comic strip home for about 6 or 7 years at that point, hadn't it? So they'd had this long running strip.
yes, definitely. And so I definitely felt like I needed to include that because that's sort of where season 6B started. So I thought I'd throw in a little nod to that.
I'd assumed you were this massive comics fan, and so you've never read the strip itself.
Never read it. No.
Well, it's a brilliant touch, and I suspect there's a lot of people who will have been punching the air at that moment, or looking very pleased with themselves because I know what that is. I know what that is. But that's part of the fun too, isn't it? When you sort of get a few people, just a minority of people who will get it, who will feel it, but it's not on screen long enough to be conspicuous and to have everybody else thinking, "What is this nonsense?"
Exactly, and that's sort of how I thought of it. Yeah, didn't want it to make it didn't want to make it confusing, but it's there for people who spot it. So
Yeah, I think that will have gone down very, very, very well, and also would mean that the people watching will be even more even more inclined to be responsive for what you're doing, because there's some audacity involved in thinking you can add to something. Both the war games and Spearhead from Space are both very well thought of slices of Doctor Who, aren't they? I mean, is any Doctor Who story perfection? I think you could probably argue that for a month of Sundays, but they are certainly up there, aren't they, as pieces of work in their own right, as well as benchmarks of the show. So there will be people out there sort of crossing themselves and thinking, how has he got the right to do this? But that's not what you're doing at all, is it? You're not trying to sort of stamp your headcanon on things as such. I think there's a romance to what you're doing here. And to me, romance is a very important part of Doctor Who. And that's why, just as you describe, when I see projects which just sort of dump fan lore and they connect dots in quite a clever and quite a cerebral way, or in a meticulous way, I can feel quite overwhelmed by that. It's just dropping of what about this and that and that. Yeah, very good. I feel like I'm marking somebody's homework. And there's no romance involved at all. Whereas with this, I think you've held back on some things and thought about it. It's probably the filmmaker's eye, I would guess.
yeah, well, yeah, it's very
Storytelling.
yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's very yeah, very kind thing to sort of pick up on. But yeah, I guess yeah, because I have like I said, I've done short films and stuff at uni and through high school and everything, and so I do like telling stories and all that kind of thing. So I don't really think of myself as much of a VFX artist. I've there are people online who create 3D models of the TARDIS, or time vortexes and all these incredible
Mm.
things, which are completely beyond me. I I'm I My focus really is obviously taking footage that exists and compositing them in a way by putting different pieces together to try to make something that looks good. But it's really just there purely for the sake of, well, I need this shot. I need a shot of Patrick Troughton standing in this position in this area doing this for the sake of the story to work, for the sake of the sequence to work. Um, so yeah, it's kind of the VFX shots are really just a means to an end. Really, I'm not really there are times when I think I spend so much time on something because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I'm sitting there almost dreading sometimes going through it, even though I'm putting myself through it. It's completely my choice, but I'm you know rotoscoping and masking people out by cutting them out frame by frame. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and it's actually that part of it doesn't feel that creative because it's very I don't even know
Arduous.
how to describe it. Yeah, it's just very monotonous and yeah, but yeah, it's really just there just to try to get a result, to try to get a shot that I need for the sake of the sequence. So might a bit of a rambly answer, but I hope I've
No, I
explained
think
it
no,
as
it's a
something I can.
perfect answer because it lines up with the instinct that I had watching this. Is that you were seeking to tell a story, a short story, nonetheless, quite a very short story, one would say, but a story nonetheless. And it does seem to me, from how you've explained it, that was your driving compulsion to do that, the best, rather than just to show off what's capable within that period of time. Which bits can I realize in an effective and simple way? Obviously, you're coming out of the black and white era, and the Time Lords as we'd seen them. A lot of it was against completely black backdrops, wasn't it? So this all adds perfectly to the
Yeah, yeah,
creativity, the simplicity that you wanted to employ.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, it was definitely fun to put together. But yeah, I think it really as a fan myself, often these projects just come out of me wanting to see them. I want to see, oh, wouldn't it
Mhm.
have been cool to see this? Wouldn't it have been cool to have this as a little episode? And then I go, well, if I can find some footage that works and sort of cut it together in a way, then I might be able to make it. And that's sort of where it comes from.
How on earth did you manage to make this seem so real? This seems like absolute wizardry to me. I've watched the entire thing now 5 times. Both actors that you include in this, both Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, they passed away some decades ago now. Obviously, both still very deeply missed, and we watch their material over and over again. Yet here they are, seemingly acting in scenes that I've never seen before. How on earth do you start? Because it looks like you've brought these guys back to life, and that this is unseen Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, I'll start by I'll talk about this shot particularly that you got on screen because I think that's a sort of a good place to start. Firstly, because I needed a backdrop, which the shot is from the Twice Upon a Time behind the scenes video they made. I think the one on YouTube or on the DVD, I can't remember.
Ah.
Where it's a shot that there's actually some like cameras and a few crew standing there, and then Mark Gatiss is sitting in the chair, and I the thing that really helped was, we talked about AI before. Photoshop has a new feature called the generative fill, which enables you can just draw around something or draw a certain section on something and then go generate fill, and it just creates more of the image based
Oh
on
yes.
other parts of the image using AI. And it's very imperfect. A lot of the time, it doesn't create what you want at all. To be fair, but
Are you able to go
it's
back into it and tweak it?
exactly. It's a good starting point. It's helpful because it enables you to create something that you go, okay, there's a good base, and then I have to manually go in and fix it a lot. So there's a lot of manual work involved. But then that was the first thing, was removing everybody in the scene. So it was just the TARDIS backdrop. Then it was a case of taking a shot from, I believe it was the Mind Robber, of Patrick Troughton sitting in his chair. However, the shot in that only goes down to about I think it's about his thighs. So
Mhm.
it's more of a mid shot sort of thing. So I took that, and then I think I used other images from other episodes and that to create the rest of his body. Then I had to colorize it, put him in the scene. So yeah, this one took a long time. Probably one of the shots. I'd say the shot that probably took the most time overall was the actual shot that looks like this one, but has the actual regeneration energy coming off him. That one was I probably have no idea how long that one took, because the amount of work, because the shot of him, because it's like where he has his hands up and then he puts his hands down on the chair. The shot that's from is again from the Mind Robber, but the camera is moving, so it's zooming in on him as well. So I had to stabilize the shot so that he was still, so that that wasn't moving, then cut him out, then colorize him, then warp his body to match
Wow.
the physique of the other shot, and then obviously the effects of the regeneration energy. Oh, it was absolute nightmare. But I knew in my head, I could see it. I was like, I know this is going to work. It's just going to take time. So I'm really really happy with the way that one turned out.
Was there a lot of trial and error involved?
Oh, definitely. It's I'm trying to really, I'm trying to remember if there was many instances of shots that I just completely abandoned. I actually think there was originally the video. I remember, this is literally going back a year or so now. I was going to have him actually stand up and then regenerate like the new series with his hands sticking out.
Mm.
And then he was going to fall over. And I even created a whole shot of John Pertwee lying on the ground and sitting up, which I just abandoned, which I spent a lot of time on and then abandoned because it just wasn't working, the whole thing. And then when I decided, oh, you know what, just have him sitting in the chair, that's when it sort of all came together. And I think it works all the better for it.
I can't recommend people go and see this for themselves enough. So I'm trying not to spoil every single frame of this, but it's the perfect description, I suppose, for somebody like myself who's never dabbled in this field at all, to explain, or at least I'm able to picture it in my head, how you would go about doing that, what you would pull from, and how you would line it up. And as you say, with these brand new evolutions to something like the Adobe Creative Suite, as you described, it's the right product for you at exactly the right time, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for anyone out there who, because I've had people question, oh, what do you use before? So because obviously people want to try this sort of thing themselves, it is all just the Adobe Creative Cloud. It's Adobe Premiere for editing, After Effects for compositing effect shots, and Photoshop for creating a lot of the imagery that I need to. So I mean, the effect shots really are After Effects and Photoshop, and that's all I use. I don't use anything else other than some various websites online that have features that allow you to do certain things. Like there's a website called, I can't remember what it's called, X Pro Vocals or something. I'll have to look it up again. But it allows you to, if you put a video through of, like, someone speaking where there's sound effects and music in the background, it uses AI to remove the vocals, so you get the vocals isolated. And like that is very useful for, sometimes I need certain dialogue that, it's in some classic episode where there's music all over it or sound effects all over it. And so there's various sites that allow you to do that kind of thing for free. So they definitely were involved as well.
Well, that certainly would come in handy for me as a content creator as well in putting together audio podcasts. So I have to make a note of that and get on it. Yeah,
Mm.
the various elements to your short film that come together, it's all so seamless, Jake. It really is,
Oh, thank you.
and so evocative of the time. Even the black and white. Obviously, we're used to seeing Patrick Troughton's Doctor in black and white, but here he is in color, and there's the TARDIS in color, with the correct colors as well, with the green
Mm.
console there, and the displays and everything, so perfectly in line with what we recognize as being part of that iconic original prop. So how did you go about getting all? Did you create any new elements and put them into footage you were able to squill from other places? Is there some of this is you and some of this is them?
Pretty much all of it. Because again, like I said, I'm not a specific visual effects artist, in the sense I can't do 3D modeling or anything like that. So all of the shots are just shots from something else that I've taken and manipulated in some way.
Oh, I see.
So a lot of the stuff in the TARDIS, well, pretty much all the stuff in the TARDIS is mainly from An Adventure in Space and Time, because that's when the TARDIS console is green, and a lot of that is very useful. So a lot of those shots came in very handy. There's one shot of the TARDIS screen where you can see he looks over at the screen, and it's used a couple of times where you can see the TARDIS monitor. That one is again from An Adventure in Space and Time, but David Bradley is in the foreground looking over, and it's the shot that has Matt Smith standing there as well. So I've had to paint out them, and I did this actually before the generative fill tool came in, which when it did, I was like, oh, that would have saved me so much time. A lot of this is me manually finding little bits of the frame of different parts of the episode and stuff, and manually kind of warping the images and painting across, all in Photoshop. So yeah, a lot of work, that one. And I wish, like I said, found that generative fill tool. So I wish that had come out sooner, because that would have been very handy. But yeah, like I said, everything's there is all from shots from the actual show or from behind the scenes, documentaries, whatever it may be. That's where I've sourced everything from. Nothing is created as a CGI from scratch.
I did wonder, because these images that you've got in there of the third Doctor in particular, I thought, I don't remember ever seeing that before. This is the third Doctor, John Pertwee, seems to live again. It's almost eerie when you see the
Yeah.
third Doctor come to life again.
Yeah, well, that shot, if anyone needs to know, wants to know, it's from, I don't remember which episode, but it's from Inferno. It's the actual shot is the other way round, because he's lying on the ground and he's waking up. I think it might be in the final episode,
Wow.
from what I recall, when he's just come back from the parallel universe. And so it's um I've used Remini, Remini, I don't know how to pronounce it,
Yeah.
the software online that allows you to digitally enhance images to make it a higher quality, to make it look almost HD. I've used that as a base, and then cut him out, and then put him on a different background. And the background is again from an event, just a shot from Adventure in Space and Time that I've manipulated and edited as well.
So it does look like, obviously, we're used to seeing Doctors in the modern series. More often than not, they do regenerate in the TARDIS. And it does seem to me that, obviously, because that's the Doctor's home, it's his sanctuary, and it's often been speculated the TARDIS is part of the regenerative process, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's they definitely established that. What is it, Power of the Daleks, where he says, "Without the TARDIS, I wouldn't survive." So that's kind of been retconned a little bit, I suppose, now. But I think it's I suppose regeneration has become very synonymous with the Doctor being inside the TARDIS. So I think I mean, he says it in Power of the Daleks that it's connected, so it must be. Who knows?
The history of Doctor Who, of course, one of the things I think fans enjoy, begrudgingly appreciate about it is its inconsistencies and the things that are said in the show and then maybe contradicted a few years later, things that are done and then undone. And I suppose we can cherry pick the things that we want to believe, want to invest in, subscribe to, particularly with the various book ranges that have expanded on several ideas. The Series 6B notion is a prime example of that. But the most notorious of all is still probably, after all these decades, is the whole unit dating thing. And you very, very cleverly, this is the moment, or these are the moments that made me laugh out loud here when that display on the TARDIS console, because the Doctor looks over, doesn't he? The newly regenerated Doctor looks over what's going on, and he's looking to the TARDIS to tell him, where am I? When am I? But the TARDIS isn't cooperating, is she? And you really nicely play in to the unit dating argument here, don't you? When were these stories set? Were they the 70s? Were they the 80s? And this is just a fantastic bit of, I suppose you could say, only fans will know, but then again, only fans are going to watch this, aren't they? So thank you for this.
Yeah, well, that was I honestly I think I came up with that, yeah, literally a very long time ago, probably in the early days when I was actually making the video, and I just thought, that just seems too good of an idea to resist, really. Like, I had to
To
do it
flick
because I
between
just
the two like that.
yeah, because I mean, you could have just, not included, the year at all, because really the year doesn't matter
It
to the
doesn't
story
really
or anything.
matter.
But
And
but yeah,
some people, Jake, who watch the stories, maybe they are happy believing that they're set whenever they feel they are. And so if you were to make a definite statement, they might think, oh, did you have to do that? You've spoilt my fun. But with this, you've got to have your fun and not spoilt anybody's at all.
definitely. And I think that sort of comes back to what I mentioned before about I've made it so that you can season 6B might be true or it might not be true. And it's the same with this. It's sort of like well, let's just leave it open to interpretation, include okay, so in the story, there's some kind of malfunction going on, and the TARDIS can't figure out the year because the TARDIS is broken. That's what the idea is, that the Time Lords are restricting the Doctor and not letting him leave. So you could go, well, the TARDIS is just damaged. But that, I think, is just, yeah, it's just too fun to resist. Why I couldn't help it.
Did you allow yourself any other indulgences that you haven't spoken about, or things you're keeping to yourself? You don't have to tell us what they are.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm sure there are, but I just haven't. I'm just not thinking about them. Ooh, I don't think. Well, other than what I already said before about originally I was going to
Yeah.
make the whole season 6B thing much more elaborate originally, and then I decided to sort of go back on that a little bit. But yeah, I don't think, not really for this one. I definitely have other projects that I've worked on that aren't out there yet, which may or may not come out one day, depending on when I
Ooh.
finish them. But there's definitely many instances of things where I've gone, oh, that would be a really fun idea, and then I've gone, oh, actually, maybe I'll hold back. But nothing sort of comes to mind right now. But I'm sure it'll come up again in future.
Is there anybody out there who you've used, a peer, for example, somebody who's working in a similar field, or another Doctor Who fan or two that have given you advice about this, that you've been able to go backwards and forwards, where you've been sort of stuck a little bit as to finding the sweet spot, or a resource or an answer? Is there anybody who's collaborated with you and supported you in achieving this?
Not in terms of discussing the actual project itself. I generally, it's more just I'm the only one who's seen any of this until basically I put it out. So, and other
Really?
than like a couple of close family members, but I mean, I have had some help on this project for things that were just beyond me. For example, Dave Ladkin on Twitter.
I know Dave, yeah.
kindly lent me his 3D TARDIS model for the time vortex sequence. So I put out a message on Twitter saying, does anyone have this box? I originally made this myself by taking a couple of images of the TARDIS from the Third Doctor's era and
Yeah.
basically sort of trying to warp it to kind of make it look like it was sort of turning, but it just looked terrible. And I was just thinking, oh, I just, this just isn't working. So I thought either I'll completely cut these shots, or if someone has that particular TARDIS model, I'll do that. And thankfully, Dave was happy to help, and it's just improved it so much. I was so happy that he was able to do that.
Pooling resources to achieve the best results, because there are people who are experts in the TARDIS, aren't there, who've got all sorts of models of it doing all sorts of things. So why not?
Yeah, definitely. There's even the time vortex there. I obviously didn't make myself. Like I said, I source everything from pretty much elsewhere. But that was just Delta Effects on YouTube. They had this time vortex effect up, and they literally just said in their description, feel free to use. Just give me a credit, and anyone can use it for their project. So that was very handy. And he reached out to me recently after I released the video and said, "Oh, it was great to see my vortex there being used." And obviously, I'm very thankful for that as well. Because again, that kind of thing is well beyond me. I wouldn't know where to start with that.
It's one thing to take this slice of British popular culture, not just of Doctor Who, and to add to it and enhance it and to have fun with it in the way that you have. But you've also got to sort of put all the toys back in the box, haven't you? You've got to discipline yourself in some way. Otherwise it simply doesn't work. The story on television with the Third Doctor picks up, doesn't it, when we see him literally fall out of the TARDIS, the poor old soul. So the TARDIS lands in Woodland, doesn't it, and we see the Doctor, who's still in the Second Doctor's clothes. The trousers are definitely hitching up, aren't they, to his shins, to Pertwee's shins there, and he's clutching to the TARDIS door before falling face down in a pile of nettles by the looks of things. It doesn't look very comfortable, does it? I hope it didn't. Yep, there wasn't any dogs had maybe been walked that morning and left something unsightly for the Doctor to to wake up to there when he got out. But so this is where the story picks up, isn't it? And had you always had it in mind that you were definitely it was going to be finite, you were going to take it right to that spot?
Yeah. I made the whole thing to be a video that you could watch between the war games and Spearhead. So if anyone was watching war games, doing a marathon, decided to turn on Spearhead from space, they could watch this, and it wouldn't feel like it wouldn't feel like they were just watching some added VFX shot in the middle. It would feel like you could literally play one to the other, and then it literally is a bridge between the two episodes. That's really what I was focusing on doing.
Because it all picks up, and obviously the Doctor ends up being fine, generally speaking. He doesn't have the best of times. The Brigadier gives him a hard time, and the new companion, Liz Shaw, she also gives him rather a hard time too. But eventually he's kind of okay, and he's able to go about his adventures. Well, sort of. TARDIS doesn't do what he wants it to do anymore, but that's another story. That's another story, isn't it? So this absolutely works for me, Jake. I think you've added to it beautifully. And so I was wondering, how has it been received by the Doctor Who fans out there? I know it's early days because you dropped this just about 48 hours ago as of time of recording. I noticed that 30,000 views already on YouTube, but there must be comments and all manner of things coming back to you.
Yeah, it's I was generally blown away because I thought because I've made a couple of videos in the past that have taken off. Not everything I've done has taken off that much. Because I like doing musical tributes as well. They don't tend to get as much traction. I don't care. I love doing them anyway. But I always kind of know that the edits, these things tend to be a bit more popular. People tend to take to them. But I somehow had in my mind that this might do okay. I don't think people will take to it as much as something like my Sixth Doctor Regenerates video, because it's not as important, I think, in Doctor Who's lore. The fact that we never saw Colin's regeneration feels like something's missing, whereas we did see the Second Doctor's regeneration, we just didn't see the transition. So I didn't think of it as an important of a moment. So when I put it out, and it really just took off very quickly, and everyone was sharing it around and going that this is probably my favorite video of yours that I've ever seen, or my favorite Doctor Who edit that I've ever seen from anyone. That
Ah.
was really, quite flattering and surprising, and it never fails to amaze me how much people like my work. Because really, I'm making it in my room just for fun, because it's something that I want to see. But it's always wonderful when fans take to it as well, because I want them to enjoy it as much as I enjoy it, as a fan myself.
At the risk of being an absolute sycophant, I've seen some fantastic stuff from Doctor Who fans, practically on the weekly. This is the best I've ever seen, Jake.
Oh, well, thank
Congratulations.
you.
It is an absolute triumph.
I'm very flattered. I'm very, very, very thankful, and to everyone who's commented and shared the video. And yeah, it really is. It is overwhelming in a lot of ways. So thank you so much.
Obviously you can't please everybody all of the time, and making anything creative and lining it up with something such as Doctor Who, you're not going to please everybody, are you? People have their preferences or their own headcanon, because you say these little moments, just like Collins, just like the end of the Sixth Doctor. It's been speculated in comic books, audios. They've done all these things over the years. We can choose which one we subscribe to, can't we? But with
Yeah,
Doctor Who and with lore and with visuals, people do have the things that don't make sense. We make up in our heads the reasons why they do make sort of sense if you think about it. And sometimes if you live with them for decades, like I have lived with some of mine, you can forget that they're of your own invention. It's a very strange thing. But I did wonder, because a couple of people have said to me, I wonder why he did use the modern regeneration effect. Why did you go with the gold flames that we've been used to since the series came back in 2005? It's been a pretty much a constant, because obviously back in the classic show we didn't see anything like that, did we? So was that something you debated, or was it a personal preference, or where did that come from? How did you arrive at that?
yeah. So I knew when I did it. As soon as I decided to do it, I knew, because I know Doctor Who fans. I knew some people were not going to like that. Some people are very much, purists in that way and go, no, no, no. It should be. You should make it more like it would have originally been done. Maybe slightly beyond the technology they had, but it should be something along those lines, so it's not too out of place. Um, but I feel, for me, I not only made this to be a bridge between those two episodes, but I also
Mhm.
made it because I made it in widescreen color, not just color, but also
Yeah.
widescreen color, to make it seem like you're watching a modern day episode of the show. And I kind of feel like it's been very much established ever since Russell T Davies said this back in what was it, when they were doing Utopia, that he wanted the Master's regeneration to look the same as the ninth to 10th Doctor regeneration, because he thought, well, we need to establish this is a process that the Time Lords go through. Why would it look completely different every single time? There would
Mhm.
be a consistency to it. And I know some fans go, "Oh, I'm so sick of that effect. They should do it differently every time, or they should just change it up a bit." I'm personally of the opinion that I think they always need to change it up, in the sense that the way they present it should be changed up. I loved how in The Power of the Doctor just recently, Jodie Whittaker regenerated on top of a cliff edge, in front of a sunset. Putting a different location, or even some people don't like this, but even in twice in was it sorry, Time of the Doctor, when the famous sneeze regeneration that some people don't like,
Oh
I
yeah.
quite liked it, because it's the same concept. It's still the yellow glowy energy, but you're just doing it in a slightly different way. So, given things like Twice Upon a Time showed the first Doctor regenerating, but also had the yellow regeneration energy, I thought, well, in my mind, all of them have the yellow regeneration energy effect, but they just didn't have the technology to show it at that
To
time. And it's as
depict
simple as
it.
that. And I think another aspect of it as well is, I've heard a fan theory before, which I think is brilliant for anyone out there who wants a fan canon explanation for it. I like to think of it as, the reason the regenerations all look different before, and then after, from the new series onwards, now all of them, even retroactively, seem to be the yellow regeneration energy, is because during the Time War, the Time Lords weaponized regeneration, because if the Time Lords were going to die in battle, they wanted them to be able to destroy their enemies. So they
to
retroactively went
almost
back.
to almost perpetually regenerate. So if they sustain a small
Exactly.
injury, their bodies can repair themselves and they can carry on fighting, physically fighting.
Exactly. And then they're Time Lords. So, well, if they're going to change it like that, they would go back in through time and change how regeneration was. So you think, well, all of these regenerations throughout history, they look different now. If you go back and see them now, if you took a TARDIS back and viewed John Pertwee turning to Tom Baker, you wouldn't see a crossfade. You would see the yellow regeneration energy, because that's how it is now. And that's how I see it. And not everyone's going to like that, but that's just personally my own little fan theory. And
Good
I
for you.
just personally think it looks cooler. I think it's more impressive. It makes regeneration feel triumphant when it's, exploding energy coming off them. Yeah, so
Because as
it's
much
just
as it's an end for a much loved character, it's also
yeah,
the beginning of something else. That the idea of a renewal is something to be
definitely.
celebrated, to be enjoyed. Obviously,
Yeah.
regenerations in Doctor Who are cultural touchstones on a broader scale, because they're the scenes that often get clipped. In the old days, they used to clip them and show them on magazine shows where they'd get the cast in to talk about Doctor Who. Nowadays, we still have a little bit of that, and they'll go onto news bulletins and things, but obviously they get clipped and they get put across all the social media platforms. So this regeneration of the 13th Doctor into the 14th, it's been viewed by millions of people, far more than watch the episode itself on television, and all over the world. And we're on the threshold, aren't we, of this exciting all-new era for Doctor Who that's going to start with those 60th anniversary episodes in just a couple of months' time. God, it's been a long time coming, but they are coming. we're told they're coming. But not only that, so we've just had that one regeneration just under a year ago now. We've got another one coming pretty soon, haven't we? So, as somebody who's a kind of a regeneration expert, I think in some respects, what are you looking forward to and what's to come? Do you think that, based on what you've just said, they should still hold that line, or should the next version of the show maybe look to change it up in some senses? Are you looking forward to seeing it all happen all over again?
Yeah, definitely. I'm very, very excited. I mean, Rusty Davies and David Tennant, I grew up with them. They were my, doctor. That was my doctor as a
You
kid. That
keep
was my
rubbing this
era as
in.
a kid. So I'm incredibly excited to see what they do with it. And hey, as much as I come up with these fan theories and ideas of things
Yeah.
that I like, every fan is going to have their own idea. Not everyone's going to agree, and it's probably going to be changed up eventually. Eventually someone's going to come along, some showrunner, some writer who will go, well, what about this? And it's going to completely contradict what we've seen before. And you just accept it. You just roll with it and go, okay, it is how it is. But yeah, all you can really do is, at the end of the day, like I said, it's all just a bit of fun, really. I think there's many people, I think, who just take it too seriously. I understand being passionate about the show. I am myself. I'm critical of it myself. But at the end of the day, it's not always going to work for you. But just have fun with it. Don't get too caught up in the continuity and the canon and everything like that. Because honestly, as someone who makes these sort of videos, I think it's so much more fun taking something from 1970s and then something from 2010 that completely contradicts each other, and going, how can you kind of make that fit together? That's way more interesting and way more fun than going, that episode is not canon and it didn't happen. I just don't buy into that, and I don't think it's a fun way of viewing the show personally.
I had a lot of fun for 3 minutes. Well, actually, for 20 minutes worth now that I've spent watching. I've watched it several times, and now for the entire time we've been talking about it too. I suspect I'll get another few watches in before the weekend arrives, because it's a wonderful piece of work. The Second Doctor regenerates on YouTube right now to watch in full. There's a link in the description of this video and the show notes too. So this is your YouTube channel, the Confession Dial. There, and yeah, there it is, cranking up 30,000 views. That's absolutely going to soar, I've no doubt, as the days roll on and as word gets out about your fabulous film. But yeah, you've got all these other projects there too. But I think I've seen some, but not others. Definitely seen the Sixth Doctor region 3 years ago. Yeah, all the pennies are starting to drop now. But have you got any future projects in the pipeline that you can tease us, or are they best not mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I think for the way I kind of work is that a lot of the projects that I have, I've got probably about 6 projects going at once.
Mm.
Some of them I may finish, some of them I may never finish, because there are some projects that I eventually go, you know what, this doesn't quite work. And really, it's just a case of it's not so much a case of what am I going to do next, more so which one am I going to finish next, because there's a whole a bunch there. But yeah, there's a couple of videos I'm making which are sort of remakes of older videos,
Mhm.
because I think improved greatly since I've done those original videos. So yeah, I won't mention them just yet, because I think I probably
Mm.
want to put little bit more work into them before I actually officially announce them. But yes, there are some there's some fun stuff on the way that I think people are going to enjoy. Some simple ones, and then some very complex ones that yeah, I'm looking forward to putting out there.
You're not going to want to miss it, everybody. As you can see on screen, I'm subscribed. I think you should go and subscribe to the Confession Dial if you haven't already, and then you'll be on the inside, won't you? As soon as anything does drop. But obviously, you do use social media as well. You're over on Twitter, aren't you, Jake? This is your handle. Where else can people find you? Do you do anything else?
No, I mean, with this sort of content, it really is just Twitter. If you want to hear any of my thoughts on anything, because I post Doctor Who opinions as well, just as any fan does. But then yeah, my content is strictly YouTube. So that's where you'll find me.
YouTube and Twitter stroke X to get Jake and the Confession Dial and anything he may be dropping in the future. So yeah, a reminder, the second Doctor regenerates. That's what it's all about. This wonderful new short fan film that plugs that gap in the best of ways. It's great fun, a fantastic tribute to the late Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, come to think of it, and Derek Sherwin and everybody else who was involved in Doctor Who around that time between 1969 and 1970. A bit of a sweet spot, a very particular time in the history of our favourite TV series. Okay, yes. So if you'd like to find out more, you can find Jake on Twitter and subscribe to his YouTube channel, of course. And here on the Type 40 channel, you can find us with more podcasts and videos and live streams and all manner of other things that we get up to here. Make sure you like the video now, subscribe to the channel, and hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what we're doing next and when we're doing it. Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Type 40 Doctor Who. And you can find me on Twitter too as the Spacebook, wheezing and groaning, ranting and raving about all things geeky inside and outside of the TARDIS in TV, movies, comic books, and everything else. Okay, so what we'd like is for you to let us know what you think. We want you to go and find the second Doctor regenerates there on YouTube, watch it, and then drop us a comment below about, what are your favourite moments? Any questions you've got for Jakey? I imagine he's flooded with them already, but a few more aren't going to hurt, are they, Jakey? You want to hear from people, I assume, don't you? You want to know what people think.
Oh, definitely. I'm happy with I'm always excited to see the obviously the comments of what people thought of it, but also the comments from people saying I didn't like this, or this didn't quite work for me because of this. So go ahead. I really enjoy listening to everything everyone has to say.
Fabulous. Well, I'm delighted you could find the time to meet and speak with me about the second Doctor regenerates, Jake. I know we're in completely different time zones. I know you've got to go to bed, and it's very much like that, isn't it? But yeah, it's great to meet you, and thanks for coming on. I'm going to go and watch it again now, and wait for the comments to roll in, and I send people, go over to the Confession Dial, go and watch it there, and obviously leave Jake a comment there too. But Jake, thanks again for your company. The best of luck in all your future projects, and congratulations on the second Doctor regenerates.
Thanks so much, Dan. It was great talking to you. I've had a lot of fun.
Fabulous. And we'll look for you in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Over to you out there in space and time. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.